separate. Good evening. My name is Tracy Amati, and this is going to be a interview of a 9-year journey of Emmanuel Kuyateh, who has been a co-host on previous shows, but he's going to be our guest. And we also have our Dr. Naganzi Truth. She's going to be the co-host. So I thank you very much for coming on. I thank Sierra Cast TV allowing us to have this platform so we could talk about depression. So, but before we start, we always start with a prayer, and then we will start with the program. So let's bow our heads in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you and give you praise and grace. I ask that you allow us to speak the truth, to allow people to really see where they're at, and let them know that it's okay not to be okay, and there's help out there, Heavenly Father. And I ask that you bless this show in a very special way. In the name of Jesus, amen. Amen. So I have some statistics here, and in 2017, there's 17.3 million adults 18 and over who are suffering from depression, at least one episode. And throughout this interview, we will be discussing the symptoms of depression, treatment and management, and the different types of depression. And then also you can do a self-screening just to see where you're at, and that would help you if you have some characteristics of depression. So Emmanuel, why don't you tell the audience something little about yourself?
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for having me, and allow me to to be able to share my story, and I know it's going to be a great conversation, and I'm looking forward to what we're going to have to discuss. So again, my name is Emmanuel B Kuyateh Jr. and I was born July 9th, 1997. My parents are Bishop Emmanuel Kuyateh Sr. My mother is Anita Kuyateh. And my grandparents, Edward Massaquoi, Ella Massaquoi. I was born in in the church. My father, started his ministry, even based on me being born and him wanting to have a child. So the connection is really strong. I'm also a minister of music. I love music. Music is my passion. I love playing the keyboard. I love singing. I love ministering. I've been doing this for a long time. Even though I'm young, I've been doing it for a while. I'm the founder of a new group called Manny K and the Vision, which one of the singers right here is a part of it as well. And we started it, I think, last year. Yeah. So I'm just thankful, to be here. I'm also the music minister at Family Restoration Worship Center. Some of you may know it as Grace Christian Fellowship Ministries, which is in Oak Ridge, New Jersey. So I've just been, I've been in ministry for a while, and I love it a lot. But as a Christian, you go through things. As a human being, you go through things, and I really do feel as though that this is the time to discuss, depression and mental health, because it's affecting a lot of people. And a lot of times in our community, it's very pushed under the rug. We don't want people to talk about it. But you heal as you reveal. So I thank you guys so much for, this opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing a little bit about yourself. Can you share your first experience with depression?
Okay, so my first experience with depression, I would definitely say was in 2012.
And how old were you in 2012?
Okay, I was in July, so I was 15, yeah.
He was 15 years old,
yeah.
Okay.
So, I was kind of bullied a lot as a child, and I suffered with anxiety, and I struggled with confidence and stuff like that when I was little. So, that was part of it. But I remember vividly and it's so weird to me. I remember vividly one day, I was in my room. The air conditioner was on, television was on, but I remember vividly a dark feeling coming over me, a really weird dark feeling, and it made me feel very weak. Where like sometimes I struggled to even move to get out of bed. Like I didn't even want to go out. I didn't want to do nothing. I just wanted to stay where I was. I felt super weak, super weak, and I believe that July 2012, that day, or that time was, I think that was the first time I encountered depression. So I was 15 years old.
Well, Dr. Truth, can you give a description or tell the audience what depression is and what the difference is between depression and anxiety?
Sure. I'm Dr. Ngozi Truth Krishan, licensed eligible psychologist. Um, Been in the 15 plus years. So I'm going to define what clinical depression is as it pertains to major depressive disorder. And so that consists of depressed mood most of the day, nearly every day. Um, Usually the person may feeling empty or hopeless, or others may observe them appearing tearful and other symptoms related to their mood. You may seem down today or nearly every day that week. Um, a second symptom is diminished interest or pleasure in all or almost all activities most of the day. So if you were into sports or into the music ministry, just like Emmanuel here every day, every Sunday, and then you see them start to fall off or not show up and have no pleasure in something that they were really enthused about previously, then that may meet that criteria for that symptom. A third symptom is significant weight loss or weight gain. Usually it's 15 pounds or more, and it's within a time period, a specific time period. Also, insomnia, that means lack of sleep or difficulty falling asleep, or hypersomnia, sleeping too much, nearly every day. A fifth symptom could be psychomotor agitation or retardation nearly every day. Observable by others, that means slower movements. Emmanuel said, I felt weak. So if you're feeling weak, you may walk slower, you may move slower, it may take you longer to get out of the bed, or you may not want to get out of the bed. You may stay in bed all day.
Right.
Fatigue or loss of energy nearly every day is another. Feelings of worthlessness or excessive or inappropriate guilt
Hmm.
Right.
nearly every day. And recurrent thoughts of death, not just fear of dying, but recurrent suicidal ideations or wanting to die or just wanting not to be here anymore. Just feeling like it's better off for you not to live. Um, there are also some other criteria, but at least five of those symptoms needs to be present during the same 2 week period to meet the diagnosis of major depressive disorder.
Right, because you
There
know
are
what's.
other forms of depression.
Mm-hmm.
I just read criteria for one. That's why it needs to be diagnosed by a professional. So that means a primary care doctor, a therapist, or a psychologist or a psychiatrist, not
Right.
yourself.
Right. And I think people do that a lot because when there are things that happen that maybe there's a death in the family, they lost a job, that they will go around, I'm depressed. People use that word loosely, but like you said, that the difference between like life events that will get you down and you may have mood swings, you're just not in a good mood because things are happening. is that is the persistence of those feelings and you not having the energy. Because I remember when I was diagnosed with kidney failure the first time and I was on dialysis. Yes, kidney disease, it does make you fatigued, but I didn't have the energy to do anything. And it took me a while to realize that not only was I, fatigued due to my health condition, is that I was depressed. But it didn't even dawn on me that I was. So that's the reason why I think that it's really important. I was going to ask you about self-screening on the, I believe it's ADAA, anxiety, depression, and Associate of America. They have a self-screening. Do you recommend anyone doing that?
So if it is a professional website, then yes, I would take the self screener, but I also would exercise or have you all exercise caution because that still does not mean you meet the criteria for clinical depression. Professional will still need to follow up to give you a diagnosis.
Oh,
You can't
okay.
diagnose yourself. Oh, I took that quiz. I'm sad. I
Mm-hmm.
haven't been
Right,
eating regularly. I'm having trouble sleeping. You can't diagnose yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's
right.
criteria that we know that you all may not. That's just a screener.
Okay, okay. And Manny,
Mm-hmm.
get
I
back
also
to.
wanted to
I'm sorry.
comment. I wanted to comment on what you said about grief. And grief, you do have a level of depression there, but depression is normal in grief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's a time period for the depression to last for grief. And so, again, don't diagnose yourself with depression if you're dealing with grief because your depression could be due to grief. So, you
Right,
don't actually have depression. You do, but you don't
right,
because it's grief in context.
right.
Or that's why you have to go to a professional so we can tease out those details.
Right.
Right.
And then suggesting also to go to grief counseling because when my husband passed away, I did do grief counseling for about maybe 2 or 3 months, and it helped to be amongst people who have experienced loss. And I knew that I wasn't going through it by myself. That I could share my emotions, and people could empathize, and they really understood what I was going through because they were going through the same thing.
Right.
Manny, get back to you.
Mm-hmm.
You were saying that you felt a dark presence, but were you going through anything? Like, do you know what was the cause? Like, you just got upset because you were being bullied, or what was going on?
Okay. Well, there's okay. I'm okay. You know what? Now I'm gonna have to just lay it on the table, right? Yeah. Part of it was me being bullied, as a little kid. Part of it was me not having self confidence in myself. You know, in who I was as a person, and not really feeling motivated even in the church. That's just real. A lot of times in the black church, and I just got to be, not all black churches, but most, to be honest, young people are not really empowered. So I didn't really feel that level of, encouragement or push at that time when I was, 14, 15. So I felt very devalued, you know, as a human being, as a musician, and just in general. And I started to feel, very weird about myself, you know, and it got really bad. I mean, like as Dr. Truth said, you can't even get out of bed. It's like even to pick up the phone. You know how you could just pick up the phone like this? You can pick up the phone like this, right? Simple as that. But if you're depressed, it's like you can't. You're trying. It's like this light phone is really heavy. You get what I'm saying? It's really, really heavy. So that's part of what I was really depressed about. I didn't really feel, like I didn't feel like life was worth living. I just feel really weird in myself, weird about myself, and that's basically yeah.
And did your parents notice anything different about you? The way you were acting, you started staying in your room.
Because at the time I didn't know what it was, so I didn't know what it was, and my parents, I don't think they that entire year they did not know. I don't think they picked up any signs until 2013. That's when they started picking up signs. 2012, I didn't really I really didn't get any uh, uh, um, signs or whatever. It wasn't really shown because you got to remember, you know, um, a lot of times when you go in public, and now I'm about to get really into it. Now in public, you got to remember, the bishop's son, right? That was the same year my dad got ordained as a bishop. I got to portray myself in a certain way. This is not what he said to me personally, but I felt the need that I had to do that. I had to portray myself in a certain way, do things a certain way. And it was almost like I was living my life for people, right? And I didn't feel like it was worth it. You know what I mean? I didn't feel like it was worth it. And usually, and be very honest, in the black community, especially in the African community, right? People are ignorant to depression. And as a kid, you know, it's like, what do you have to be depressed about? I'm not saying this is what they thought, right? But in the culture, is like, what do you have to be depressed about? You're a kid. You're not paying any bills. You're not doing anything like that. Why are you depressed?
Mm-hmm.
So people would see you, and they don't even know that you're struggling with this thing. That's why, like, again, I just want to stress this. When you are in when you people that are in ministry, right, leaders, members, pastors, right, be careful how you speak to people and how you relate to and how you communicate your words to people. The reason why I'm saying that is because you don't even know whether or not the person that's going to your church is dealing with depression or is feeling suicidal or is feeling weak. So you really got to show love and spread love and encourage people because you don't know what they're dealing with. So that's what happened. I think 2013, when they started to see it, was okay. This is what used to happen. I didn't really understand the feeling that I was feeling. So as the time going on, I started to become very angry and aggressive because of my depression, because of my frustration. So a lot of times I would break things in the house. I would break things. I would smash things. I would act out. Like, I remember I was young one time, and for some reason, some stupid reason, like I took a hammer and I started smashing my glasses.
Wow.
Truth. This is the truth. And I told my mother I don't feel comfortable with myself. I feel ugly. I don't feel like God created me to be anybody. I feel this. I feel that. I feel useless. I hate myself. I hate myself. That's what I was saying the whole time. And my mother cried because it's like, how can my own son, feel that he's not worth it. You know, he doesn't want to be, because I was extreme. I was bullied a lot when I was younger, extremely. And then on top of that,
verbally or physically, verbally bully or physically.
Verbally, I was bullied. Because, you know, to tell you the truth, I didn't get into incidents where I was getting into fights and stuff like that. No, but I was verbally bullied. And words are powerful. Words can do a lot of damage.
Yeah, words are very, very powerful. I have a question for Dr. Truth. How difficult is for people to admit that they're going through depression, or parents? Parents sometimes have a difficult time admitting that their child is going through depression, because even though that we're talking more about mental illness and anxiety and mental disorders, they still don't want that for their child, but that's exactly what they're going through. So how difficult is it, and what are the signs? I know I'm loading up the questions, but what are the signs of depression? And I know that is different from different age groups. So what are they?
That's a good question.
Yes. And so I'm happy that you asked, because when Emmanuel began to share about the destruction of liberty, the anger, the not liking himself or hating himself, or not viewing that he was um, thinking that he was ugly, all of those things are key, especially in adolescence and with children. Mood can be seen as irritability, so that irritability that I believe that Emmanuel was somewhat displaying, not only just the mood symptoms, but also the irritability, is a large piece of depression, children and adolescents. And parents can notice that irritability in their behaviors. So usually that's the first thing that they notice. So getting into fights at school, if your child is being bullied, if your child has the low self-esteem or is telling you that I don't like something about myself, then that may be times that you start having conversations with your child or adolescent about what's going on for them. How are they feeling? Those are questions to ask, and to ask the open questions, open-ended questions that do require a yes or a no answer. So, not are you feeling sad today? Because that's a yes or no. They could say no, but they could feel something else. So asking them, instead of do you feel, you can ask them, how are you feeling?
Right.
So then they can open up. We also have feelings charts so people can begin to identify those feelings, because a lot of times, in minority cultures, we know sad and mad, and that's about it.
Yeah.
um, but there are
Yeah.
various other emotions, and it's variations of each of those emotions, right? And so a lot of times it's more acceptable for males, especially, to identify anger, to express anger. But there's some feelings of the anger. And many times that's hurt and that's pain. Um, that could be embarrassment or something else. So if let's just say Emmanuel came home and told his parents that he was being bullied at school, they believed him and went to the school, but the bullying didn't stop. Then what happens next? You know? And so Emmanuel may or may not be okay with the bullying continues. So then he may address it on his own if the parents or the teachers are unable to stop it, you know? So there's various, responses to uh, symptoms of depression, or things, triggers that may lead to depression. Lots of children are being bullied in school,
Right.
virtually, on social media, and in person. Physical physical abuse, and people are, pushing them around the classroom, stuffing them in lockers. Like, this has been going on for years. Or the emotional or the verbal turmoil, where someone, and then that coupled with your low self-esteem or low self-image and depression, may lead to some suicidal symptoms, or maybe I'm not worth it, or maybe I am ugly, or maybe, I am dumb. And that internalized image turned inward turns into depression sometimes. Other times it may come out externally into anger and against other people. So physical aggression, getting into fights. Now you're becoming the bully, you know?
Right, right, right. For example, like, am I getting
No,
you
go
away?
ahead. No,
Okay,
go ahead.
okay. So, for example, like, yeah, yeah. Again, as I said, bullying was part of it, but there were I think there were two main factors of my depression, in the early stages: school and church. I didn't feel empowered in any of them. I didn't feel encouraged in any of them.
You don't think that they accepted you as a person?
No, not that, not that. I just feel like, okay, like, in the beginning stages, I'm not gonna lie, and I'm not saying that they did it on purpose, or they were probably doing it ignorantly, but a lot of times, in the African setting, Hamza, if I'm wrong, correct me. We look at little kids as they're nothing, right? especially in the churches. Oh, what are you doing? You little boy, this and da 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 da. So there was a time that I actually questioned whether or not I was a good keyboard player. Not to sound, but I even questioned my ability on the piano. I felt like I wasn't good enough. I felt like I wasn't good. I remember sometimes I would cry when I go home. I'm like, Mom, I don't think I play well. I don't think I'm talented. I don't think I'm gifted. I think I suck. I told my parents that. And I'm like, why? Why do you think that? Why would you? Because I'm not to say that I'm looking for validation, but I wasn't hearing that.
You weren't being encouraged.
Not until, but I think but we'll get there until a certain point. But we'll get there. I'm just saying that so you don't,
Yes.
we can get there. Yeah.
That's key. And so parents and adults in the church and in school should validate and acknowledge and praise children and adolescents,
Yeah.
because that becomes the inner voice for children.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't hear that we are good at these things, that's self-efficacy, like good at playing the keys, or good at sports, or good at school, or good at being a kind person, or things like that, then we internalize the criticism, which sometimes we hear. When we're bad, that's definitely hard upon, especially for children, for teachers, and by parents. So don't
Right.
do that, so then we have that voice in our head saying that we're bad. Don't do that
Right.
behavior. But
Mm-hmm.
we sometimes we have trouble hearing the good parts, or remembering and recalling the good that people have said about us. That's why I keep all thank you cards,
Yeah.
so when I'm down, then I can look at my thank you cards and remind myself, like, oh, well,
Right.
it's great. I'm great at something. And so
Right.
children need it too. So just like you put a young child's photo or their artwork on your refrigerator, we have to continue to do that as our children grow. And so even in adolescence, although sometimes they smell us, you still have to acknowledge them, even
Right.
though adolescent boys may or may not shy away from those hugs, but they still need that verbal praise, whether they look like they accept it or not. Give it to them anyway.
And I want to add another thing. Like, what really helped me, as far as still being involved in the church today. I don't know if he's watching. But my mentor that I had on the show, that I had an interview with, Emmanuel, right? I started he's always trained me, but like I started playing with him, like to different places, and when I would go to New York, and there's a group called Second Chance, right? And there were a lot of young people that were my age as well. And I'm never gonna lie, I'm gonna be straight up. That was the first time I felt validated as a musician, because I had young people that are around me that thought like me, thought the same way, did the same thing, and they actually we connected. And these are dope singers and musicians. Tell you like, yo, Manny, like you're really good. Now I'm not doing it for the sake of validation, but being so encouraging, being a part of that family, and being so like a big part of why I'm still playing, or why I'm still playing today. A big part of that, I'm never gonna lie, is Second Chance, the group, right? That was the group that he started, and being around those young people, and I developed so much close relationships with them. Like, for example, I remember the first person I got really close to in Staten Island. His name is Ben Tucker. J.R. Kurt, Ben Tucker, he's a keyboard player, he's a singer. J.R. Kurt is a drummer. Augusta, a beautiful singer. I call her my best friend. Tisha, who else? Peku, all those guys, and being around them, it really encouraged me and it lifted me up even more. So I really appreciate them for that.
Yeah, I think it's important, like you said, Dr. Truth, that we need to encourage our children, and like they always said, that you shouldn't tell a child that they're bad.
Right.
But I always say in the back of my head, but he is really bad. But I understand the reason why we shouldn't say that. And I just want to share with parents, my daughter, one of my daughters, she was going through depression. I had no clue. She would come home for school. I would ask her, how was your day? What's going on? And then she did withdraw, but I thought it was that typical teenage, pre-teenage thing that they don't want to be bothered. They wanted to stay in their room. So parents really need to get into their children's business, so to speak, not their privacy, but I just wish maybe I questioned more the reason why that she was in her room more than she should have, or if I was going out, I would ask her to go. She wouldn't. So, what are the things that parents should look for in the do's and don'ts that possibly parents will do? Because I know the one show that I did when I was researching, the one thing a parent shouldn't do is like compare your child to the next door. You know what I mean? And just like, well, Susie Lou, she's doing all of this. Why can't you? And not knowing that that may push their child further into depression. So can you share information about that, Dr. Truth?
Sure. You can notice the amount of time that your child is spending in their room alone. If that is drastically different, so if they spend 3 hours in their room, now they're spending 20, that's a drastic change. That's something to note. If you notice in their mood or in their snappiness, in their responses to you or to others, that irritability and irritation in their voice, their tone, then I would ask them, I would have a conversation with them. It doesn't mean that they have depression, but I would have a conversation with them. If you're receiving phone calls home from the school or from the church, you know, about your child's behavior and or interactions with other peers, especially because peers are the number one influence of adolescence. So they're most important. So I think it's really key what Emmanuel just said about that peer validation and being accepted and feeling like he belongs when he got into that right group.
But can I tell a story?
They or nay definitely influences self-esteem, well-being, and things of that nature. Because in adolescence, parents are they take a backseat to peers.
Mm-hmm. Right. But before you go on, there was someone who logged in and he said good morning. I mean good evening. And I'm sorry if I hack up your name. It's Armand Mantu. So I wish you a good evening and thank you for logging on. So go ahead.
Yeah, so okay, now as I got older, you know, and okay, but one thing I'll say is whenever I played with those guys, like I was never depressed at all. Like I like that it would disappear. You know what I mean?
In your element.
Yeah, I was in my element, you know. So when I got older, like I'm out of high school, I'm getting into college, right? Things started getting really worse. I started to get really, really, really super depressed because first of all, I was worried about my future getting out of high school, you know, transitioning to college. You don't know how you're gonna do it, how you're gonna make it. You don't feel like you're smart enough. You don't feel like you're gonna graduate. You don't feel like you're gonna, you know. And my depression was so bad. I remember like my first year, like, okay, I started in October 2015, right? The second semester, that time I was super depressed, super suicidal, right? I flunked all the classes that I was in. Like, you know how people have honor rolls and stuff like that? Like straight A's? You ever heard of straight A's? Right? Mm-hmm. You ever heard of straight F's?
I'm sorry.
It's fine.
No.
I accomplished that. You know how? Couldn't focus in class. Couldn't get out of bed. I didn't want to get out of bed. I felt so demotivated. But to tell you the truth, the only time that I actually felt okay or my problems disappeared was when I went to New York and was playing with my friends. You know, it disappeared. And also I remember, you know, there was a time, and this was at the time, you know, in the church. My father was not in America. He was in Freetown at the time, right? We had some people there in the ministry at the time that were sowing a seed of discord. I'll be 100. It's the truth. That were doing some really diabolical and some dirty things. I'm not gonna lie. Keep it real. And he was not here in Freetown. I mean, he was not here in America. He was here in Freetown. So I didn't feel like playing at the church. I didn't like playing at the church because, again, at the time, I did not feel validated, or I didn't feel like it was something that, I just didn't like it. So at the time, one of my other mentors, his name is Bolton Brown. He would play at the church, and I would play in New York. That was for a stress reliever, right? I felt great, but then I started hearing
the negative stuff.
Your father is in Freetown. You're here. You're supposed to be representing the church. You are a disgrace. I heard one of that. I remember one leader. He's not in the church. He told me, "Oh, you know the right thing to do, but you don't want to do the right thing." Like to say, like what I'm doing is the wrong thing, and he had the guts to tell me that knowing what he was doing.
Right.
So-called minister. Anyway, so I got a lot of backlash and flack for it, but people didn't really know that. Listen, I was going through depression, but there was somebody that said to me, said to my mom, "Is Manny okay? Something doesn't feel right. He doesn't look okay." Somebody said that to my mother, and they actually showed concern.
Can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
There's some people who may think that since you are a pastor or bishop's son, that you are privileged. So, and I guess the church, probably felt that you were on that pedestal and you had no room to be depressed.
Right.
Because people think that, he has everything at his disposal, so you shouldn't be depressed. But it's just how they look at you.
Right. But again, that's ignorant because you don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
Right.
And
right.
another thing is this, right? Let me tell you what a lot of preachers' kids struggle with that I forgot to mention on the last show. They struggle with wondering whether people in the church, or some people in the church, certain people love them in the church because of who they are or who their parents are.
Yeah.
A lot of preachers' kids struggle with that. God forbid if something were to happen to my mother and my father, would you still, excuse my French, give a damn about me? Would you still call me? Would you still love me? Or is it just because my parents are in that position?
Right.
A lot of preachers can struggle with, and that's why a lot of them, they can't stand the church because of that.
Right.
And there's a time that I actually struggled with it as well, because I felt as though, during 2015, 2016 was a completely weird time in my life. I had no idea what was going on. I don't know what was going on with me, but I remember I lost a lot of weight. And I remember around that same time I tried to take my life.
Wow.
Yeah. I remember it was a weekday. Came from school, and I was just sitting down. I went to the bathroom. I tried to fill my tub up, and I wanted to drown myself in the tub and suffocate myself to death. I don't know if there was a Holy Spirit that spoke to me not to do it. I don't know what it was, but it was really tough. It was really tough, and my mother would cry every day. My grandparents would cry every day. My dad would be so concerned. At that time he was in Freetown. He was very concerned. He was worried, super worried, and that's when I started to question whether or not God is real.
Well,
Whether or not God, because if I'm a Christian, if I'm serving God, why am I feeling like this? Why do I hate myself? Why am I going through these things? Even I'll be honest, seeing stuff in church. Why am I going through these things? Why? Why is it like that? Why is church like that? Is this God thing really legit?
but I have a question for you. Um, did the people around you help you and help you with your depression? Like, what got you over it? And then I'm going to ask you, Dr. Truth, is what can people do when they get to that point where they're starting to, think about suicide? So, Manny, who helped you? What happened?
Um, there were people that really helped me, and like for example, um, I would say, yeah, a lot of people helped me. There were people in the church that did help me, that did pray for me, that did talk to me, that did counsel me. Like I remember, you know, he's watching the show. His name is Eagle White. He prayed for me every day. He would talk to me and pray for me. Same with my brother. Same with, and even with Eman, I'll talk to him all the time. My mentor, talk to him. Talk to, my friends in New York. Talk to my brother Edwin Duo.
Right. I'm
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt you,
Mhm.
but what? All right. Prayer works. Prayer is powerful. But I remember with the pre-interview, you were saying that your counselor
Oh yeah.
referred you to a therapist, and they taught you or showed you ways of dealing with it. So can you share with the audience what that was?
Okay, so we're gonna go back for a second. When I first went to therapy, that was in 2013. I was 15, turning 16. Um, I hated it because at the time I thought that, if I'm going to therapy, I'm at the lowest point in life. That's what I thought. That, man, therapy, like, I'm going to therapy now. Like, what's wrong with me now? Like, I'm not gonna, like, even if I'm going through something, I'm not gonna admit that, I'm going through something, because, like, why do I need therapy for? You know that mentality.
Right,
That
that
mentality.
stigma.
So I would go to that therapy and I would act like nothing's wrong. I'm fine, I know, like, I'm trying to do the lady's job, right? But then I stopped going. Boom, got down right back into where I was at before.
But what did she had you do? What helped you get over that hump when you were going through therapy?
Okay, now that's the guidance counselor.
Oh, okay.
The guidance counselor in my school, she told me this. You're at a place where you're always like this, right? So when you're in that low place, try to put yourself in a place where it's like back up. Do things that'll put you back up here. If you go down low again, do something that'll put you right back up here, like that, to make you feel better, so you don't stay in that that place that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like a constant battle. Like, you're constantly trying to, because some people, they do it their whole lives, and they're still living, but it's because of, they look for distraction and look for things to get their mind off of depression and keeping themselves down like that.
Right. Right.
So that's the reason why I that really helped me.
Okay. And then Dr. Truth, your medical your expertise, he was talking about, depression. When someone is at that point, what do they do so they don't follow through?
So if someone is at the level of suicide, contemplate suicidal thoughts, or has a plan for suicide, like running the bathwater or things like that, the first thing that I would do is, as a parent, I would either have them take them to the ER, to the emergency room, and or call the crisis line, which is the suicide prevention line. It's the National Suicide Prevention Line. And I'll just say that now since we're talking about it. It's 1-800-273-8255. They also have a text line where you can text the letters TALK, which is the word talk, to 741-741. So even if you're listening to this now, a parent can call that line or text that line. A child or adolescent can text that line, or an adult, for someone else or for yourself. And you don't only have to have suicidal thoughts or a plan. You also can be going through a mental health crisis and or depression or anxiety or any mental health condition, because there's several reasons why people may or may not be in therapy with a therapist. And I think Emmanuel touched on some of that. Some of that is the stigma that we have around mental health. And I'm not crazy. It's
Right.
not about crazy. There are, tell people, is there a continuum. And so everybody needs help sometimes. And so some people feel more comfortable receiving that help or going to their primary care doctor. I have no problem with that. That's still a professional. The primary care doctor and or the school counselor, like in Emmanuel's case, can refer you to if it's beyond their scope. But a lot of times that first point of contact is maybe that medical doctor, that nurse, or like we said, I just lost my thought. The medical doctor, the nurse, or the school counselor.
Therapy helped
Um,
me a lot.
and that's
Oh,
okay.
sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Yeah. But sometimes we have, so I used to work for Georgia Access Line as a crisis counselor. And sometimes we had a youth or a peer, adolescent, calling for another adolescent. So
Mm.
sometimes, again, peers are that main influence. So let's just say Emmanuel could have told his friend and not told his parents. That friend can call for you
Right.
to get you help, even though your friend may be mad at you later, but they may actually not be mad at you because you got them help and you heard about them while they
Right.
were in their lowest point. So I think the main thing is to reach out for help to someone and not keep it to yourself.
Right. The key thing is to talk, and I want to emphasize, and in the beginning of the show I did say that it's okay not to feel okay.
Right.
You know, a lot of people think that you have to be happy go lucky all the time, and that's not the case. You know, that you have your ups and downs. You talk to people. There's people that you could go to. You might not be able to talk to your parents, but hopefully you might have someone in your family, a friend, and then the hotline that you suggested. But if what do you suggest if someone is constantly going through these up and what is it, up and
Up and down
down
motions. Yeah.
emotions? What should they do? How should they handle that?
That's a loaded question. Again, I'm
That's a
gonna
good question.
refer them back to therapy. It's so many different cases. So I'm here to give general information
Mm-hmm.
and not specific information. But one is
Okay.
to reach out for help to whoever is in your life,
Mm-hmm.
so usually that's the closest people that are to you. So family, friends, or an adult in your life, if you're a child especially, and then to reach out professional and or their hotline.
Right.
I
Okay.
would not, and of course there are things that you can do in between. And so I can give you some things that I would say if someone came into therapy. And so when Emmanuel starts to talk about some of his emotions and behaviors and things of that nature, then those um, could be considered some risk factors. Risk factors for depression, risk factors for some of the behavioral activation could be one, that you live in an overcrowded home, or that one parent is utilizing substance abuse, or your mother has depression. These are all some of the risk factors. Another risk factor is living in a low social economic environment, so poverty. Another risk is not having an adult to look out for you. So a lot of kids in foster care are at risk. But risk factors are not predictive factors because of protective factors. And so Emmanuel started to state some of those protective factors for him to help him. So the positive peers, and he talks about mentors.
Mhm.
He also talked about some self efficacy and feeling like he did something right or has some skills in something like playing the keyboard. Also, some coping skills. So sometimes when you come into a therapist's office or a school counselor's office, then they may have you practice some journaling and do that as homework. They may have you track your moods. So for little kids, we do happy faces or
Mhm.
sad faces, and they can draw them, or they can
Mhm.
circle them on their feelings chart or their feelings wheel. So now you're identifying how you feel, and we're checking in with you on a daily basis. Sometimes we may also assign that homework to parents, so they're not just receiving on the school end; they're also receiving it on at the home. So now we're reinforcing and we're practicing it at home, at school, and sometimes even at church. Because usually when kids are acting out behaviorally, they're asking you for something. Just like a baby that's crying, they're asking you, they're saying, meet my need, or my need is not being met, whether that's food or sleep or something else. Something is irritating me. That's what you're saying when you're acting out behaviorally. So
Mhm.
what is going on? So a lot of times we look at children as behavior problems, or like you just said, Tasmanian devil, and we call them. I'm not saying that we don't identify the negative behavior, off task behavior. I'm saying that you don't call the child bad.
Right.
Right.
The child is not inherently bad. The child may have some off task behaviors, and how do we delineate that from the child being good? And so we need to pump up the child's self esteem and the positive things that the child is doing. Oh my
Mhm.
goodness, you only were off task like 2 days out of 5 this week, or you were on task
Yeah.
3 days out of 5. So we're
Mhm.
we're pumping up the good, we're acknowledging them. Oh, you're such a big helper. Thank you for taking that note to the teacher, to the other
Mhm.
classroom. So we put them in leadership roles because they need to be acknowledged. Every child and every person needs validation, but we don't always receive that. But a child should. Now, as an adult, I mean, you're gonna have to validate yourself and do some mirror
Mm-hmm.
affirmation.
Right.
But
Right.
as a child can do it as well. But we have to teach children to do that.
Right.
But
Right.
children should be validated by adults. They're not always. Sometimes they are validated by their peers, like
Right.
in Emmanuel's case, because the adults may feel you got it enough. I did it for you from ages 0 to 15. Now you're good,
Mm-hmm.
but we're not good. We're still
Right.
waters,
Right.
and we still need the sun. We still need the rain. We
Mhm.
still need the tending to our roots and our branches, so we continue to grow into productive, well-rounded adults. You'd be surprised how many people need emotion 101 or emotion 100 to know, one, to identify your feelings, and two, to feel your feelings,
Right.
and
Yeah.
then how to manage your feelings. And
Right.
it's okay to feel all the feelings. Anger is not a negative emotion. There's nothing wrong with Emmanuel expressing the anger. But when the anger turns into destroying their property at home,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's when sometimes outside people, professionals are called in, such as the police, such as that come to the home, such as going on and on and on. Teachers,
Right.
Right.
principals. Now we're going
Right.
to the principal's office because your behavior is elevating you you know, to be seen. But again, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to be seen, but
Right.
not for that reason. And
Right.
sometimes we miss it if we continue to just place people in the principal's office, but not ask them what is the root, what's
Right.
the cause, what happened to you, not what's wrong with you, why you keep
Yeah.
acting
What's
up,
going on
because
in the
that's not
house?
helping
Yeah.
the child. The question needs to be changed, not to what's wrong with you. I mean, not to why you so bad, but what happened to you.
Right.
What happened to you? What's going
Right.
Right.
on, Emmanuel? And sometimes as adults, we don't slow that conversation down to find it out. We just,
Right.
okay, they're depressed. Okay, their behavior problem. Okay, ADHD.
Hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
disruptive
Immediate
mood disorder.
fix.
But
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, but people
So he
want to
slowed
just
it
like,
down
okay.
because a lot of times when I assess children, I find out that there was some trauma there. I find
Mm,
out that all they really wanted was a conversation with dad or a conversation with mom, or like Emmanuel said, some validation or some praise or some, I'm sad about myself, or somebody bullied me and called me this name. And now I don't feel like I belong in the church and there's so much confusion. I'm getting lost in the shuffle. Like
mm-hmm.
he
Yeah.
said, it was a lot going on in the church, a lot going on with parents. And then he's getting lost in the middle. And he's a teenager trying to find his identity and
Right,
his place in the world.
right.
And I definitely want to go to when I was 18 turning 19, right? Now, a lot of times with depression, it comes from, from the root of, where it started from. And other times too, it comes from, the problem at hand, right? And a constant problem can make it, kind of tough. So I'll be honest, and like for example, I'll tell you about, there was a time like when I became 18 and around 18 19. No, it's 18. Um, I had become music minister in my church. Um, that by that time, I was I'd really been trained and by my two mentors, Minister Wager, Minister Bolton. And when they train you, they train you. So I had some experience, and even with my outlook on ministry, even like I remember we played at like a mega church in Staten Island, and to see people worshiping all different colors, all different, like it touched me. So, at that time I had become the music minister. The transition was crazy, for a number of reasons. Number one, I was the first, like, obviously really young leader in the church. Like usually the most of the leaders are like maybe at the time they were in their 40s, 50s, 30s, right? I'm 18. So, and I'm leaders over guys that are that when they were in their 20s, I didn't even exist. So it's like, I mean, it's obvious. It's a given. Like, who is he? He's too young to be telling me what to do or what to sing or what to say and stuff like that. And at the time, some people they supported it. Some people wasn't too supportive, and it confused me a little bit because I'm like, I mean, I'm in the church. I'm bringing something different, bringing something new. I mean, why am I getting this type of
Response.
response? It was good and there was some bad, but as a kid, you always want to wonder. I mean, okay, you love it when people love you, but when you have folks that don't like what you do or don't love what you do, it's like, okay, what did I do wrong? What am I doing wrong? Am I doing this wrong? What am I doing wrong? So the response and certain things happened, and it was weird. So I felt really weird about it. I felt really weird about it. I feel like the first year, it was really really tough as a leader. And it caused me to be depressed. There was a time that um, the first few years of being a music minister in the church, I loved it because, like, for example, my friends, like, Edwin, was like one of my closest, like one of my brothers. He was a part of it. I'm sorry, yeah. Then it was fun. It was some days it was fun, but then some days when folks that don't really agree with what you do and stuff like that, their response can be a little bit aggressive, right? So around that time, I had become a music minister, but it was, there was a time that I got very depressed.
Is it because you felt like fish out of water because people weren't accepting you?
Well, not that I didn't feel accepted, but I just felt I maybe felt like they felt as though I wasn't ready for the job because I was too young.
No, well, I say that's their problem.
Like,
So, but I do have a question for Dr. Truth, and we talked about this briefly. What are the things that you're going to a therapist? What are telltale signs that maybe you should look for another therapist? And then I know that we talked about each party, the therapist and the patient, has responsibilities to each other. So, what are the responsibilities that, if they're not met on the patient side, that, you know, to tell the patient, you know what, maybe I should look for another therapist, and the other way around, the responsibility of a patient.
Okay, so that's a loaded question.
I know, I
Um,
just keep on shooting them at you because I'm going to forget. So now it's on
Yeah.
you to remember.
Yeah.
okay. So when you come into the therapy environment, it should only be about you as the client. That's what the focus should be on, your goals for treatment. So if you feel like you're not moving toward goals for treatment, then that may be a conversation that you need to have with your therapist, um, that you may be exploring other therapists.
Mm,
Because many people don't know that you can let your therapist go. And therapists have also let clients go if they feel that, one, their therapeutic relationship is no longer moving towards those treatment goals,
mm-hmm,
or that the client is no longer making progress. They could say either your treatment was successful, or and this is all that I can do for you at this time. I'll refer you to a specialist or refer you to another therapist, or the vice versa. The client can also let that therapist go for lots of different reasons. It should be a confidential relationship as well. That means everything that you tell the therapist is private,
mm-hmm,
except for if you're talking about suicide or harm to someone else, or in the cases of child abuse. So if any of those things are not being done, then of course those are red flags that you may need a different therapist. Sometimes if the modality the therapist is practicing does not work for you. For
mm-hmm,
instance, if the therapist is cognitive behavioral, that's CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and you are looking for more deep rooted work, then you may look for a therapist that's working in psychoanalysis, um, which can go all the way back to your childhood, and that therapy may last longer than 12 or 20 sessions. That may be some people are in therapy for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. Some people are in
mm-hmm,
therapy all of their life, but sometimes that's their choice, and sometimes that they need that because they're working on different issues. So your treatment goals may change. That would lengthen your treatment or your therapy sessions.
mm-hmm,
But you should always be able to ask the therapist, and they should be transparent with you on what goals that you all are working on and what is expected for you as the client. So we expect the client to show up on time. We
mm-hmm,
expect the client to cancel in a reasonable amount of time. Most therapists have a cancellation policy. We also expect the client to be real and honest with us
Right.
and to share when they are maybe depressed or suicidal or things of that nature. So we can explore those things together and get them a safety plan
right,
into the help that they need for that moment. And I just feel like I need to share this, that if you are suicidal, express that to your therapist. It does not mean that you'll get hauled away by the police
Yeah,
or
that's a
the ambulance
misconception.
automatically. That's not what it means all the time. Sometimes that may happen, but it's not a haul away, you know? And your
mm-hmm,
therapist should help walk you through that process so that you can remain safe. And that's the reason why people are taken to a psychiatric hospital or a medical hospital, so that they are monitored and that they are safe, because usually it's a risk factor or a red flag. I'm suicidal, or I'm
mm-hmm,
homicidal, or I'm having a mental health crisis. And so usually a stay is between 5 days if they are inpatient at a psychiatric hospital. And then when they come out, they come right back to their same therapist most times
mm-hmm.
to follow up. because the outpatient therapy, that's seeing your therapist, that's outpatient. The hospital is inpatient. And so when
Right.
you come out, your outpatient therapist sees you usually once a week for an hour. And then you're going through and exploring some of those emotions, behaviors, thoughts, and how we can change some of those emotions, behaviors, and thoughts. And if you come to a CBT therapist, then usually we're giving homework. So practice your journaling this week, or did you practice these behavioral skills this week? Did you talk? Did you help challenge some of your core beliefs? I'm not good enough. Okay, how can we challenge that? How can we change that negative core belief to a more positive core belief for you? So you
Mm-hmm.
begin to, so your behaviors and your emotions mimic that, because our
Right.
thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are all linked. So if we change one, we can change them all.
Mm-hmm.
uh, I want to just add to this, to like, I just want to bring this up because you brought up being suicidal, right? um I know for me personally, when I struggle with suicide, um one thing that really changed my perception on it, um was when I tended to wake up somebody that was born the same year as me. um that time I really wanted to do something to myself again, because at the time, and this is just the truth, I felt as though things at the church, especially as a leader, things became too stressful. School was very stressful for me as well. I was still struggling, kind of struggling with my grades. Then being the leader, you got folks that didn't agree with your sentiments, so instead of staying, they dipped. Truth. So it was a heavy, burden on me. And I remember at the time feeling very suicidal. I hated life. But when I attended this girl's wake, that was born 1997. Yeah, I'm 24. Young. Um, it changed my whole perception, because I saw that when I got to the wake, because I played the keyboard that night. Her father looked just like my father. Her mother looked just like my mother. And I watched this. That was the saddest wake I'd ever attended. Um, Her mother was running around the church like she was going crazy. Um, I remember when my mentor gave the tribute. That was the first time I ever, started to give out all the information. But that was the first time I ever seen him get like emotional or be teary eyed. And when I stood next to him, I looked, because where the casket was, you could see the whole body. And I looked at the body, and I said, "Wow." And I remember driving home, and I went to my parents. I told my parents, "I'm sorry that I had to put you through all that, because what I saw today, if I do that to my parents, what like what's the effect gonna be?" And not only that, I remember I remember the first time I ever went public about my depression was a Friday night service in 2017. I publicly told him about it, and being suicidal, and going and seeing that and what it did to me. The whole church busted up into tears, because they were shocked. They did not know. They did not know that I was going through this. They did not know that I was suicidal. They did not know I was suffering through depression. That my mother was crying every day. My father was stressed every day. Like, can you imagine Sunday morning you're gonna go preach and your son tells you he doesn't want to live? So I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. Like, my father, Bishop Emmanuel B Kuyateh Jr., is the strongest person I know. If that man can go and still pastor a church, still preach, even Sunday morning after his son has told him, "I don't want to live," kudos. For my mother
Yeah.
still praying, for my grandparents still praying for me, and when I announced about my depression and being suicidal, it became, I think that was the first time depression and suicide was ever brought up in the church. And after I talked about it, and even when I did a sermon, I did a couple of sermons on depression and stuff like that. remember people come to me personally that I never, would have thought of. Said, listen, Manny, what you're saying is true. I went through that same thing. I was depressed. This happened to me. I was depressed. So this is a real thing that's actually happened, but nobody wants to talk about it.
I think people are starting to talk about it more because there's just more and more people, and it's affecting people of every ethnic group, ages, and now with COVID, and people have to understand that the reason why they were so surprised that you were going through depression, because even though that it was great effort on your part, but you still can function most of the time. There's sometimes when you can't, and you could chime in, Dr. Truth, but you still go through your daily chores, and sometimes people just don't see what effort it takes for you to do those daily tasks. And this is the reason why it's so important for people to talk about their emotions. I'm going to say it again. It's okay not to feel okay. Talk to somebody about your emotions. Get yourself involved in the things that you like to do, even though you might not have the energy to it or the the mind frame to do it. Sometimes you got to push yourself. And if you share your emotions with other people, they could be your best cheerleader. So you need to talk. Depression has been silent for too long. People have lost their lives through suicide because of the fact that they just felt lost. And I'm glad that even though that, do you still battle with depression now?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what have you done to, what do you do to help yourself?
Well, remember, I've been doing this for 9 years now. I'm older now, so I got to start doing things differently. What I did to help there are things that helped me. One of the things that helped me later on in the years, remember I told you I became music minister in the church, very stressed out, stuff like that. But when my mentor joined the church, for my sake, right, that played a great big part in helping me with my depression. At the time, like, it became a less of a stress to answer because now you have somebody coming in that's like, that's there to support you as well.
Understands you too.
And my grades started to go up. I started making dean's list, president list, stuff like that. So that was that. You don't gotta clap for me. Also, at that time I was getting, my circle changed. That's another thing. My circle changed. School wise, my circle changed. The people, when I had straight F's, my circle was different from the people it was different. My circle was different when I had made dean's list and president's list and stuff like that. Another people that helped me as well, like when I'd be around them and disappear, as his name is Edwin Duo and even Lewis Brooks. They when I'm around them, I'm laughing. I'm always just joking with them, and it's so much. It helps, and I try my best to get myself out of that state. Try my best, try to focus on other avenues, especially with music, or or just a thing that really changed, especially my life, especially was the pandemic. Because okay, now I'm a graduate, right? The church, in my opinion, is completely transformed, and there's so much love in there. So much, you can feel it. You can feel the love. So now it's like when I go to church now, it's actually therapeutic for me now. It's actually healing. I love it. Like, I love going to church. That was not the case in the early years of my depression, and that also stems from a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, and also transformation, which comes from the renewing of the mind. What also helps me is just by talking to people that you love. Talking to people that you love, talking to people that But I remember I did get depressed last year due to my mother got sick that year. Plus two of my closest, like, it was crazy. It was super crazy. probably the closest people to me in the church. Two, like they're like my right hand men. They both moved to out of state. So I was like, man, cause and being around those guys, my depression would disappear. You know, when I'm doing music with them, but when they move, I'm like, dang, man, like it really hurt. It really hurt because I felt really, alone. But and then this year too, my grandma. Wow, I think this is the one that really, um, I don't want to say destroyed me, but that I think that's this year has been the worst year since because my grandparents, everybody, like people that know me know my grandparents are like they're like my life. They're my life. You know what I mean? Like excuse my friend, but I love the hell out of them. I love them. I love them to the moon and back. I love them so much. So when
Beep.
so when they got sick and they had to go through when they had to go through go to like
Therapy hospital.
yeah. And mind you, I've lived with them almost my entire life because, for example, like my mother, when I was 3 years old, no 2 years, 2.5, my mother had to travel to Africa to get my other siblings. So I was living with my grandparents most of the time. My dad had to do like extra hours and stuff like that. Yeah, and in church and stuff like that. And and a baby is a lot of work. So I was living with them. So I've always been so attached to them. So this year, when during the time when they were not home and they were not around, man, I was living became so difficult. Living became so difficult. It was really hard. No, sorry, you want to say something? Sorry.
No, yeah, but we have to wrap up
Okay.
pretty soon. So
Okay.
you want to say your closing words?
Yeah, okay. This is what I want to do because I think they deserve it. I'm gonna call some names, and I want to thank them so much because they play a part. First of all, I gotta thank. It's like I'm receiving an award, right? I gotta thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for sparing me. And even though life is hard. Life is hard is the truth. Life is hard. The fact that He continued to sustain me, the fact that I'm still here, despite numerous attempts of trying to check out, it says something. I want to thank my father, Bishop Emmanuel B Kuyateh Jr. I got to do this just to get this out. I got to thank my father, Bishop Emmanuel B Kuyateh Sr. If I start to talk about what he does in my life, I'm gonna start getting all watery eyed. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to get all watery eyed. But for that man to still do what he does, still be strong and still encourage me, even at my lowest point, I appreciate him. My mother, Anita Kuyateh, thank you for praying for me as well, talking to me, loving me. Same with Pops, my grandparents. Guys, I know I'm keeping you guys a little bit long, but I gotta let this out. My grandmother, Ella Massaquet, I want to thank her. My grandfather, Edward Massaquet. Those two, they mean so much to me. They mean so much to me. And I love them. I thank them for always praying and holding on. Even though their grandchild, the one that they loved so much, was crying, didn't want to live. But thank them. I want to thank them so much for even encouraging me. I also want to thank my mentor Emmanuel. He played a tremendous role in helping me with my depression as well. Not just from a musical standpoint, but as a big brother as well. And things he didn't have to do, he did. He did just for my sanity, especially in ministry. So I want to thank him so much for that. Joining a whole church just for one person, that really touches me. I want to thank Edwin Duo, who has always been there for me. I want to thank Chucky, well, Louis Brooks, but I call him Chucky. I want to thank Ben Tucker. I think he's watching. I know I call him a lot. When I was going through my little, I was going through my issues and stuff like that, and he'd be like, and I'm sure he probably got sick of hearing it sometimes, but he would still listen to me and go on my rants because you need that person to that you can rant to, and I appreciate that. I want to appreciate Augusta Josiah, somebody who really, 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 she's like my one of my hearts. She's man. I also want to thank. I gotta thank No, I gotta thank a couple people. I gotta thank her. I gotta thank her. Like somebody that has been a complete light in my life, especially this year.
Oh,
Tracy Amati,
aw.
Dr. Truth, you know, for being a part of these
Examples
projects.
for you though, Tracy.
Yeah, you know,
Thank you, thank you.
Hamjad. I want to thank my church. I want to thank Grace Family Restoration Worship Center. Thank you for, you know, even though we've gone through some good and some bad, you guys still continue to love me and support me. I want to thank Barb, Stacy. Stacy, I get on her nerves a lot, but you know, I love her. She loves me. So I just want to thank everybody, even you know the ministry that Manny Kane the Vision, the group. I want to thank them. I want to thank everybody, and to my parents, I'm gonna always continue to try my best and push on to stay alive.
Amen.
So you don't have to worry about, you know, me going anywhere else or me checking out. I'm not gonna do that. I'm here because of the love that you guys have instilled in me, and I feel like it's my duty to make sure that to God first and to you all, that I make sure that I reach my full potential in life.
Amen. Yeah. Amen. Dr. Truth, I don't know what you could say after that, but do you have any closing remarks? And if you could add to your closing remarks about eating habits and depression. So you can answer that, and then you could end with a final thought.
Okay, so eating habits and depression. Sometimes we don't feel like eating if you are sad or depressed. Again, like Emmanuel said, it may even hurt you or feel heavy to actually get up to do any task. So to even cook food could be a challenge for you when you're depressed. Sometimes we utilize food as a coping mechanism, and we may eat too much or we may not eat enough. And that's why that weight gain or weight loss is important, because sometimes people are losing weight or gaining weight based on that depression and that mood. And so that's what I would say regarding eating. Sometimes the eating habits may lead to eating disorders, but not always. Sometimes it's just a symptom of depression.
Okay.
That's not my closing comment.
But
I have at least two closing comments. And one is the pre-discussion that Tracy and I had about when people are feeling depressed or dealing with any type of mental health concern, and we give them the comment on go to God. Of course, we want you to go to God. We do want you to pray about it, but we also want you to seek help, professional help as well. My dad is a pastor as well, so I understand the duality and I understand that spiritual piece. So unless you are so far advanced in your spirituality where you can heal yourself, then please reach out to a professional,
right,
and pray.
Right.
Yeah, Dr. Triple, I'm sorry, guys, if I'm keep. All right. Another thing is that what you said, right? Like, I really do believe that yes, even though yes we can pray, but we have to talk. We can pray, but we have to talk. Because here's the thing: I'm not gonna go pray to God. God heal me, but I don't want to go to the doctor for a checkup.
Yeah.
God, please, I need a job. I need a job. God, help me need a job. I don't fill out any applications.
Right.
You know, so don't be so heavily bound that you're no earthly good.
Yeah, which I like that.
Which means is this, right? God put people on this earth to help you. All right? God put people on this earth to help you. He gave them wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to help you in your tasks. Maybe somebody that is asking you, how are you doing? Are you okay? Maybe that person is somebody that God has sent to speak life into you. Brother Hodges. Oh, I missed him. I can't leave him, my brother Hodges. Yeah, I remember one time I was super depressed. And when I called him and I said, I'm not feeling too good. Can we go to like Barnes, what's the place? The Panera Bread and talk? I was super depressed. After I talked to that man and he broke down, like, because it's like basically Christian counseling. When he broke down what I was going through and why I'm going through it, man, I was fine. I'm like, you know what? I'm good. Like the way he was saying to me, he was just, talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The key thing is talk. And I know I'm going to say this and I know I'm going to mess it up. But no, I'm going to get back to you. And because it's relating to what you said. Mm-hmm. It's not a joke, but there was a flood. And ironically, we dealt with a flood not too long ago. And there was a knock on the door and the man was saying, you know what, I'm waiting. I know the flood is going to come. Jesus is going to save me. God's going to save me, right? The water started going up. Then there was someone in the canoe and he was just like, come on to the boat and I could get you to safety. He said that, I'm waiting for God to rescue me. Then he ends up on the flood waters go up. He's on the ceiling, the roof, mm-hmm. and then a helicopter comes. And again, I know I'm going to screw it up. People say, that's not how it goes, but you're going to get the gist. They said, come on, get in the helicopter. I'm going to save you. I'm waiting for God to save me. Then the water goes up and he drowns. And then he was just like, God, what happened? I was waiting for you to come and save me. And you said, well, I got, the knock on the door, the boat, and the helicopter, and you refuse. I sent them to save you. So on the note that you're saying that, yes, we're going to pray and we're going to lean on God, but God put people in our lives. He put things in place to help us. So prayer, you can't discount prayer at all, but seek help. So then your second closing remark.
Yes, my closing remark is there are people out here, therapists, individual therapists, as well as group therapy for depression, as well as grief groups, as well as support groups for parents that may have children that are depressed. And you can contact NAMI, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness, at 800-950-6264. And I'm also going to give you all some apps, since we're in the age of technology, that you all can go to on your own to help track your moods, for meditation, for sleep relaxation, and just for like some color therapy. So I'm just going to start naming apps. One is the Calm app. Another is Meditation Made Simple. Another is Headspace, the Mindfulness app. OMG, I Can Meditate, Simple Habit. And some of the coloring apps are Recolor, Colorify, Color Therapy, and Pigment. And some symptom trackers for depression, anxiety, and other mental health conditions are Mood Notes, Stigma, Menti, Mood Track Diary, Easy Mood Diary, Moody, and Pacifica. Also, there are at least 2 platforms that have virtual therapists. One is BetterHelp, another is Talkspace. And I'll be remiss if I didn't with you all therapyforblackgirls.com and therapyforblackmen.org, as well as my own website, drtruthandassociates.com. So to lastly, share where I received the information regarding the risk factors and protective factors, which is through my late boss. He was the CEO of our company, Dr. Carl Bell, a Black psychiatrist. And his article is called 7 Principles for Changing At-Risk Behavior and Cultivating Resiliency Among Youth. And he talks about the 7 protective factors that help us to overcome the risk factors that many of us face for depression, as well as foster care, as well as any other negative outcomes that may occur. And so I'm just going to share those 7. Rebuilding the village. That means connecting. We talk about it takes a village to raise a child, and Emmanuel literally stated that village for him. That's very important, especially in minority communities. Two, providing access to ancient and modern technology. That's why I shared those apps. So being able to go online to listen to this, is this a podcast or webinar? Or to even go online to
Live
listen to a
stream.
meditation app. We
Mm-hmm.
used to not have that. When Emmanuel was 15, we may not have had that technology, but we do now. Virtual
Right.
therapy is new. So all of those things help us. Number three, providing a sense of connectedness. Connect with someone, whether it's a peer, your school, your church, or a support group. Number four, providing an opportunity to learn social and emotional skills. Get the feelings chart out. Identify those feelings. Use your journal. Number five, providing opportunities to increase self esteem. And not just self esteem, but also self efficacy. Like Emmanuel said, learn and remind yourself of some things that you do well and practice those things, whether that's
Mm-hmm.
art or music or something else. Number six, an adult as the protective shield, just like in the movies. Many times, Superman or Batman or now I can't remember the black one.
Who's
Oh, in the
Wakanda,
movies.
yeah, blacks
Black Panther,
yes.
You just said Wakanda.
Black
Let me
Panther,
go just
Black
Wakanda.
Panther. So that's the superpower type of protective shield. But every child that's gonna make it is gonna have an adult that is a protector for the child to help them overcome some of the depression, some of the trauma, some of the anxiety in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's not always their parents. Sometimes it is the pastor. Sometimes it is a older cousin, or in your case, it was Miss Tracy, or some of the other mentors that
That's
you
the homie
named.
right
But
there.
somebody has to stand in the gap for you. The same way we have prayer intercessors to stand in the gap for us when we cannot. We stand in the gap for children. Therapists stand in
Amen.
the gap for children. We stand in the gap for you as you are facing depression and facing suicidality or suicides. We're standing for you. We're praying for you. And we hope that you get to the other side. We hope that you are practicing the coping skills and that you're reaching out for help in your immediate circle as well as to a therapist and somebody that can help you. Just stand in the gap for you until you feel a little better.
Right.
I'm sorry. Can you tell the churches, please, especially our black churches, please have a ministry for mental health? Yes, you have the
Yeah.
women's ministry, you have the men's ministry, you have the food ministry, you have the usher ministry, you have the diaconate board, the whatever you got. We need a mental health ministry as well. All right,
And
because depression.
many churches do have mental health
Mm-hmm.
facilities on their campuses now, or
Okay, that's
counseling
good.
centers.
But
Yes, it
those that
is. So
don't,
we are
mm,
incorporating that. We also need to incorporate referral sources as well,
mm,
Mm-hmm.
so we can refer out. Maybe one church refers to another, so
mm,
it's not in house because of confidentiality. We want to make sure that people, when people share, that it is confidential,
mm,
and it may be, but I need it to be licensed counselors
mm,
and licensed therapists who do not share all that information. Pastor, if the pastor is sending you to the counseling center, then that's confidential between that counselor and that person or the parishioner,
Mm-hmm.
not to be spread to the pastor and everybody on the deacon board, because sometimes they don't share the same confidentiality that a therapist or a psychologist will. So we have to understand that, or then the practice of therapy or mental health loses its safety.
Right. Right. Thank you so very much, Dr. Truth. If you could email me or text me all that information, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put it in the chat and Facebook and YouTube so people could have it, especially for those who that they might not want to listen to the whole program. And if they have immediate need, they have the resources at their fingertips. I want to thank Emmanuel for or Manny sharing his story with us, and I hope that it was informative for those who possibly are in his shoes. that you could see that it was a journey of 9 years and he came out, and it does take a village. And I want to thank Sierra Cast TV. And again, I want to iterate that it's okay not to be okay, and that there's help out there. And don't be ashamed. Don't be bashful. Get the help that you need, that so that you could be a productive citizen, and that you could serve and use your strengths that God has given you. So thank you and have a good night. And again, thank you, Sierra Cast TV, for allowing us to be on his platform. And we're going to make a closing prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you and for all the things that you have done for us. And I pray that this live stream TV will help someone who is in need. And I ask that you place your loving arms around each and every one that is dealing with suicide, dealing with anxiety and depression. And I pray that this show will be a blessing in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you again.
We out.
And have a good night.